Most of you watching my channel haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support really helps the channel grow and motivates me to bring you more true crime stories without any break. It was September 21st, 2013, in Santiago, Spain. The time was nearing 9:00 p.m. Now in front of a house, a premium car came, and 49-year-old Ortega, who got down from the car, went near the door and pressed the calling bell, but since the door was not opened for a while, she tried to open the door, and now the door was opened and she was shocked that the door was not locked, and called her daughter Asunta and went inside the house, but in the next few minutes she was shocked that her daughter was not inside, and now she inquired the neighbors and Asunta's friends, but they said that she didn't come there. Now she called Asunta's 53-year-old father Alfonso and said everything. Hearing this, he came home in panic, and both of them went to the police station immediately and gave a missing complaint. Now the police who registered the complaint started searching Asunta, and in a few hours they received a phone call. What was that phone call and what did they say? And about what happened to Asunta, who went missing that day, about a web series which was released in Netflix few months ago, and about weird and different news which was sensational throughout the world. About 13-year-old Asunta's case we are going to decode in today's video. You are watching DCR Crimes and I am your Krishi. Come, let's move on to today's video. Are you drawn to the darker side of reality, real crimes, shocking evidence, and unsolved mysteries? Then you found the right channel. Subscribe to my channel for more videos that explore crime scenes, mysterious cases, and shocking stories. Due to YouTube's content rules, I can't show everything here. But if you want to see the original crime scene photos and uncensored content, check out my Telegram channel. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Alfonso, who was working as a journalist in Spain, and Ortega, who was a practicing lawyer in Spain, fell in love and got married in 1996. Since Ortega was a wealthy woman, they started living happily in a large house that her parents had gifted them. Even though they had money, Ortega was diagnosed with lupus erythematosus, and doctors said she couldn't get pregnant. So Alfonso and Ortega decided to adopt a child. However, since adopting a baby in Spain was difficult, they went to a child adoption center in China and adopted a 9-month-old baby named Fang Yong in July 2001. They renamed her Asunta Basterra and provided her with everything she needed. They enrolled her in a good school and began raising her as their own daughter. Not only did Asunta excel in her studies, but she also shined in music and dance classes. Asunta also loved her maternal grandparents, who considered her a precious gift to their daughter and loved her deeply. Both of Asunta's grandparents, who loved her deeply, passed away in the years 2011 and 2012. Their deaths made Asunta very sad, but unfortunately, more heartbreaking news was waiting for her. One day, her father discovered on her mother's laptop that Ortega was having an affair with another man. This led to arguments between her parents, and eventually, they got divorced. The only comforting thing for Asunta was that both of her parents' houses were within walking distance of each other. Although her mother had custody, Asunta often visited her father and spent time with him. During this time, her mother's health worsened, and she was admitted to the hospital. Asunta insisted that they should take care of her mother during this difficult time, so her father visited Ortega frequently in the hospital. However, the man with whom Ortega had the affair never came to see her. Realizing her mistake, Ortega had a change of heart and apologized to Alfonso. Upon hearing her apology, Alfonso began speaking to her normally again. Seeing her parents reconnect gave Asunta hope and happiness. She believed her life might return to the way it was before, but her happiness didn't last long. Just when everything seemed to be going fine, like mentioned in the beginning, Asunta suddenly went missing. Just a few minutes after Asunta's parents filed a missing person report, A young couple driving along a mountain road near Santiago noticed someone lying in the bushes beside the road. They stopped the car and went closer to see what it was, only to be shocked by what they found: the lifeless body of a girl, tied with a rope and bleeding from the nose. They immediately called the emergency number to report it. The emergency control room then relayed the information to the local police station. As you might have guessed, this was the same emergency call mentioned in the beginning. When the police arrived at the scene, they confirmed that the body was indeed Asunta. Upon hearing the news, her parents rushed to the location and broke down in tears. The incident quickly became a major media sensation. Since Asunta had been adopted from China, the Chinese Foreign Ministry also intervened, pressuring the Spanish government to find the killer quickly. In response, the police launched a serious investigation into the case. At first, when the police questioned Asunta's mother, this is what she said. On the day Asunta went missing, she had dinner at her father's house. By evening, she came to my house. I asked her to do her homework, as I had to go out for some work. I told her to lock the door from the inside. Around 7:00 p.m., I left to go to my other house in the nearby city. When I returned around 9:30 p.m. and checked, I realized that she was missing. This was the statement Ortega gave to the police. Then, the police asked her if she suspected anyone. In response, Ortega said she did have doubts about a certain person and began explaining something important. 3 months before Asunta died on June 4th, 2013, around 2:30 am, I was asleep when I heard a strange murmuring sound, Ortega told the police. I immediately woke up and tried to locate where the sound was coming from. It led me to Asunta's room. When I opened the door, the room was dark, and I saw Asunta lying on the bed. To my shock, there was a person on top of her strangling her. That's why she was murmuring in pain. I rushed in and pushed the person away. He became alert and tried to escape, but I managed to grab his hand. That's when I realized it was a man. However, he pushed me forcefully and ran out through the main door. That is when I realized I had forgotten to lock the door and had left the key in it. When I checked on Asunta afterward, thankfully, she was fine. It was because of my carelessness that the man was able to enter the house. I didn't inform the police about the incident because I wasn't sure how much help I could be. I didn't see his face clearly that night, so I don't know if I could recognize him now. The police then reviewed CCTV footage to trace what happened on the day Asunta went missing. While checking, they noticed a major contradiction. Around 6:20 p.m. that evening, footage from a petrol station showed Asunta and her mother traveling together in a car toward a nearby city. This raised suspicions because Ortega had earlier claimed that she had left Asunta at home before going to the city. The CCTV evidence directly contradicted her statement. When the police confronted her about this inconsistency, Ortega began changing her timeline. She said, "I took Asunta to the other house with me. But once we got there, she said she needed to do her homework, so we left immediately. I dropped her back home, and then I went to a nearby shop to buy things for her dance class. While at the shop, I realized I had forgotten my purse at the other house, so I went back there to retrieve it. I didn't go into the shop again. Instead, I drove straight to my house in Santiago. And then, when I arrived home at night, everything I described earlier happened," she explained. Ortega told the police, "Because of my illness, I must have misremembered the details earlier and said something incorrect." But after hearing this, the police began to strongly suspect that Asunta's mother was hiding something. To verify her new version of events, they reviewed more than 30 CCTV footage clips from various locations around Santiago. However, there was no evidence. None of the cameras showed Ortega driving a car that evening, as she had claimed. Because of this, the police decided to take Ortega to the other house she mentioned, to investigate further, treating it as a possible crime scene. They told her not to touch anything, but Ortega insisted that she urgently needed to use the bathroom. At first, the police allowed her to go, but as she approached the bathroom, they stopped her and asked her to wait outside. The officers entered the bathroom themselves and began searching. Inside the wastebasket, where used tissues were thrown, they found something shocking: an orange-colored rope. That is when the police realized it was the same type of rope that had been found tied around Asunta's body. When they questioned Ortega about it, she said she had no idea how the rope got there. She claimed she didn't know how it ended up inside her house, but could the police believe that? On September 24th, the police arrested Asunta's mother for her murder. and the very next day, they arrested her father. Within the next 30 minutes after Ortega and Asunta were seen arriving at the other house, CCTV footage showed Asunta's father arriving there in a call taxi. Then, about an hour later, another CCTV camera captured Ortega and her husband leaving the house together, but Asunta was not with them. Based on this critical evidence, the police arrested her father the following day. During interrogation, both parents insisted they had nothing to do with Asunta's murder. But then, a shocking twist emerged in the case. The forensic team submitted a report stating that traces of human sperm had been found on Asunta's t-shirt. The discovery raised serious concerns. What made it even more suspicious was that during an earlier search, the police had already found adult videos and photos featuring Asian women on Asunta's father's laptop. Since Asunta herself was Asian, this raised further alarm. The police quickly conducted a DNA test to compare the sperm sample with Asunta's father's DNA, but unexpectedly it didn't match. But when the police compared the DNA found on Asunta's t-shirt to the national database, they discovered a match. It belonged to a young man from Colombia. The police immediately arrested the young man and began questioning him. However, he firmly stated, "You've arrested the wrong person. I wasn't even in Santiago that night. I was 600 kilometers away, in Madrid. I was at home, and that night I had dinner with my sister and my girlfriend." He handed over a food receipt from that evening and also showed the police photos he had taken that day. When the police cross-checked his alibi, they confirmed that he was telling the truth. He had, in fact, been in Madrid at the time of Asunta's death. This raised a serious question: how did his DNA end up on Asunta's t-shirt? Upon further examination of the forensic lab where Asunta's clothing had been tested, the police found something suspicious. In the same room, there was a used condom. They tested it and confirmed that the DNA on the condom matched the Colombian man's. That's when police realized someone had deliberately planted his DNA. It appeared that without the young man's knowledge, someone had taken his used condom and transferred his DNA onto the evidence, clearly an attempt to frame him. But even after trying everything, the police couldn't find out who had brought the used condom into the forensic room. Since Asunta's mother was a practicing lawyer, the police began to suspect that she might have orchestrated the entire setup in an attempt to mislead the investigation. While they were already thinking along those lines, a new piece of crucial information came from Asunta's school. One of Asunta's best friends told the police that back in June, Asunta had confided in her that someone had tried to kill her. The friend had then told her own mother about it. Concerned, the friend's mother had approached Ortega and urged her to file a police complaint. Ortega, however, told her that she had already filed a complaint. Now, if you recall, Ortega did mention the June incident during the investigation about someone allegedly breaking into the house and trying to strangle Asunta. So, on the surface, it might seem like she was telling the truth. But this time, the police started thinking from a different angle. Why would Ortega lie about having filed a complaint back then, when she clearly hadn't? That one lie became a turning point in their perspective. With this evidence, the police began to believe that the person who tried to kill Asunta that night in June was none other than her own mother, Ortega. It was indeed just the evidence. Asunta's emotional state in the days leading up to her death also raised red flags. Classmates told the police that Asunta's mother had not been speaking to her kindly or treating her well, and Asunta had seemed noticeably sad for several days. More disturbingly, just a few days before she died, her teachers reported that Asunta had been falling asleep in class repeatedly. When they asked her why, she told them, "My mother is giving me some stinking white powder for my allergies. After taking it, I feel very sleepy." Hearing this, the police began thinking in a new direction. They reviewed her autopsy report again and noticed that Asunta had a high amount of lorazepam, a powerful sedative, in her system. The cause of death was suffocation. That detail sparked a memory. Lorazepam was a medication that Ortega herself used as a painkiller. Connecting all the dots, the police developed their theory. On the day of the incident, Ortega took Asunta to their other house in the nearby city. There, she gave her daughter a high dose of lorazepam, causing her to become unconscious and defenseless. Then, she suffocated her to death. Believing she couldn't manage everything alone, she called her husband for help. With all the gathered evidence, the police officially charged both Ortega and her ex-husband, Alfonso, with the murder of Asunta. The case went to court. After reviewing all the evidence and testimonies, the court delivered its verdict in October 2015. Both parents were sentenced to 18 years in prison for the murder of Asunta Basterra. And now you might be wondering what was the motive for the murder. After all, Ortega and Alfonso couldn't have children, and they adopted Asunta and raised her lovingly as their own daughter. So why would they kill her? What could Asunta possibly have done? It's a natural question. In fact, this very doubt was raised by the defense team during the trial. And if you remember, right at the beginning of this story, I mentioned something you may or may not have caught it. I said this was a weird case, and the reason it's considered so strange is because of the motive behind the murder. The prosecution addressed this question very carefully in court. They brought in people from Asunta's school, from Ortega's law firm, and even from the university she once attended. One by one, witnesses gave their testimonies. Then the prosecution put forward a theory, one that was both unsettling and shocking, and this is the strange theory they revealed. Even though Asunta's mother, Ortega, spoke well and carried herself like a kind, respectable woman, those who knew her closely said something different. She couldn't stand seeing others happy. At first, she cared for Asunta after adopting her, treating her as her own child. But as the years passed, Ortega's health worsened due to her chronic illness. Despite being wealthy, she couldn't truly enjoy life. Then, one by one, things began to fall apart. Her beloved parents passed away. Her marriage collapsed after her husband discovered her affair, and the man she had the affair with, he didn't even visit her when she was hospitalized. All of this slowly pushed Ortega into deep emotional pain. She had everything, but felt she had nothing. And in the middle of her suffering was Asunta, a young, bright girl, healthy, talented, happy, enjoying the wealth, the attention, and the love that Ortega could no longer feel. That's when jealousy began to grow. A dark, twisted jealousy that slowly turned into resentment. The thought crept in. If anything happened to Ortega, everything she owned would go to Asunta, a child born to someone else. Unable to bear it any longer, Ortega began to distance herself from Asunta. She stopped speaking to her properly. She avoided her. That loving mother-daughter bond quietly broke. And then, according to the prosecution, that jealousy reached its peak. Consumed by bitterness, Ortega planned her daughter's murder. Not out of rage, not even out of hatred, but out of a deep, disturbing need to take away the happiness she herself had lost. And after Asunta's death, another suspicious detail came to light. A huge sum of money was transferred from Ortega's account to Alfonso's, her ex-husband. From this, the prosecution argued one final theory, that Alfonso helped Ortega commit the murder, and in return, she offered him financial support. With this, they concluded their case, asserting that both parents were involved. Even though this part remained a theory, the evidence submitted by the prosecution was strong and compelling. The court found both Ortega and Alfonso guilty and sentenced them accordingly. Then, 5 years later in November 2020, another twist occurred. Ortega was found dead in prison. She had committed suicide, and with her death, the full truth behind Asunta's murder may have died along with her. Now, only if Alfonso ever has a change of heart and chooses to speak the truth, will we really know what happened that night. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of this case is this. If Asunta had remained in China and grown up as an orphan, she might still be alive today. Instead, she was adopted, brought to Spain, raised as a daughter, and then tragically murdered by the very people who were supposed to protect her. This case was requested by many of our DCR viewers, and it's one that deeply shook Spain and the world. There is also a series based on this case available on Netflix for those of you who want to dive deeper into the details. So, my dear DCR investigators, what do you think about this case? Comment your thoughts down below. Let us know what case or topic you'd like to see next. And remember, the best comment will be featured in our next video. Until then, stay curious, stay aware. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye.